Hello, once again. This is your lovely, friendly teacher, Prince Fifi Apple. I welcome you back once again to today's lesson. Want to still thank Editech for giving us the opportunity to share resources. We are sharing resources, so if you go through the videos and then maybe there's an omission or addition, come on, you're always welcome to link up as we share resources for the benefits of our kids and then Ghana as a whole. So today we are looking at a very important topic, which is the RAM and then the ROM. So most of the time you realize that the RAM and the ROM are always found, I think, from basic 4 upper class even up till the GHS level. We see the RAM and ROM. So we're just going to look at the basics of the RAM and ROM. So before we start, let us look at what a computer memory is. All right, so let's look at what a computer memory is. They're saying that a memory is the electronic storage space where a computer keeps the instruction and data it needs to access quickly. All right, so it's more like a storage space where things are kept there for you to just easily access them assets when you need it. So when you look at Microsoft's Word, for example, sometimes when you launch it, you realize that your already saved work or some of the work that you've done, appears at the recent. So the computer memory has actually kept this information there for you to use. So it's the place where information is stored for immediate use. The commonest example I can also give is sometimes when you are playing a game and then you save your progress, you realize that even if the phone turns off and turn on and you come back, you can still continue from wherever that you left. Now, memory is an important component of a computer, as without it, the system wouldn't operate correctly. Of course, we need a memory that contains the instructions and data for the computer so that the computer will work properly. Remember, it is also this same memory that helps the computer to boost, that helps it to perform what we call the post power on self-test. Then of course it will load the OS, which is the operating system. So let's look at how RAM and ROM play a role in the computer memory. All right, so we've already established that a computer needs memory to store information and work properly. Yeah, because the RAM and ROM helps the computer to boot and also load the OS. Now we have two types of computer memory. So we have the two main types of computer memory. These are the RAM and then the ROM. The RAM, RAM, and then the ROM, ROM. So you can see some nice videos or pictures of the RAM and ROM. To my left side, you can see the RAM, RAM, and then to my right side, you can also see the ROM, ROM. So we have the RAM and ROM. So they are just abbreviations for a wider, word. So we'll break them down and then see what each of them do. So remember, the computer has two main type of memory. That is the RAM and then the ROM. So let's take them one by one and then look at it carefully. First, we'll look at the RAM. So RAM means random access memory. Random access memory. So I'll take it again. RAM means random access memory. Random, and then access, then memory. So let's dive into it. It is the main memory of the computer. It stores information temporarily. Information is lost when the computer is turned off. So these are some of the key things that the RAM does. So the RAM is indeed the main memory of the computer, such that if you don't have a RAM in your computer, the computer would not boot. Sometimes it gives you a beeping sound, beep beep beep, telling you that there is something wrong with your RAM. So either you need to take it out, clean it, and then insert back in. Now it stores information temporarily. It means that it can't keep information for a very long time. It just stores it for, a few hours, then the information is lost. Now it also means that information is lost when the computer is turned off. Okay, because it's a temporary memory, when the computer is shut down or is turned off, all the information on the RAM is lost. You can't retrieve it, you can't access it any longer so far as the computer is turned off. But if the computer is on, then the RAM will surely keep on working and working. But information will be lost immediately the computer loses its power. That means that when working with RAM, you actually need to make sure that ECG does not take your light. All right, so let's look at some common features of the computer RAM. So we've already established is the main memory. It is temporarily, and then information is lost when the computer is turned off. So let's look at some of the other features. It helps the computer to work fast. So when you look at the diagram down there, you realize that the RAM is something that can actually be taken out and then placed back in. So most of the time you take it out, you clean it, you wipe the dust of it. If there is dust, then you put it back. So this helps the computer to work fast. So the moment you turn on the computer, the RAM kicks in, start loading all the processes it needs. Then finally your computer begins to boot and load your operating system. Now it is used when opening programs or file. So the moment you want to launch any application, program, files, or anything, the RAM also kicks in and helps you open it very easily. We also call it a volatile memory because data is not permanent. Remember we said that the data on the RAM is temporary. So any memory that stores information temporarily, we say it is a volatile memory, right? So later we'll look at the key meaning of volatile. So all volatile memory are not permanent. It means that the information on it will be lost when the computer is turned off or when the computer has no power. So let's look at how the RAM plays and examples of the RAM use. So I gave one example. I believe that there is more. He said when you open a game on Microsoft Word, the RAM helps the computer to run it. Okay, so far as you've opened a game, the RAM would actually work and play a role in making sure that your game runs smoothly, right? Now when you open Microsoft Word, same, the RAM also kicks in and make sure that it operates smoothly, right? Now let's look at the RAM also. Like, since it's temporarily, it means it doesn't stay long, within just some few hours, depending on the electricity you are using or the computer is powered on. That means the moment the computer goes off, the information on it is lost, right? So example, in our classroom, you realize that your teacher comes and writes notes on the blackboard, and then the note does not stay there forever. If you have maths, he writes maths notes. Then if the next lesson comes, he has to clean that information on it, on the blackboard, then write the science note. So at first there was maths, but since maths period is over, you have to clean the board and make way for the science. So that's how the RAM is. Information cannot be kept there for a very long time. It's just kept for a very short period, like our class. When you have math teacher comes, then he goes. So that's how the RAM also works in a computer. So far as you've opened the application, the RAM will work. When you close the application, the RAM stops working. When a computer is on, the RAM would work. The moment the computer is off, the RAM will lose all the information on it. So that's something small about the RAM. Now let's look at the ROM. So ROM means read only memory. So I'll take it again. ROM means read only memory. Okay, so it stores information permanently. Yeah, that means that the information on it stays there permanently, forever. It will never get lost. Okay, now it says data is not lost when the computer is turned off. Another key thing that the ROM does. Remember, the RAM data is lost when the computer is turned off, but with the ROM, the data is not lost when the computer is turned off. It means that the data on the RAM or the information on the RAM will still be on the RAM even if the computer turns off. So even if ECG takes out the light, I mean, the ROM is there for you. Okay, it helps the computer to start up when you switch on. So it also helps the computer to perform the power on self-test. Now you realize that the ROM is actually fixed on the motherboard, so it's not something that you can easily take out. But the RAM is not really fixed. It contains ports which can be replaced. You can get a new RAM and then put it in, but the ROM is mostly fixed on the motherboard. So trying to pick out the ROM means you're just damaging your motherboard. That's why we say it stores information permanently. It's on it, it's permanent. So let's look at some other features. It says that it contains important startup instructions. So like I said, it helps the computer to load the operating system. It's also a non-volatile memory, right? So remember, the RAM is a volatile memory, but the ROM is a non-volatile. It means that it keeps data even without power. All right, so know the key differences. The RAM is volatile, the ROM is non-volatile. Volatile means that information on the computer is lost when there is no light or when the computer turns off. But non-volatile, it means that the information or data will still be on the ROM even if the computer has no power. Now let's look at the last. It says data in RAM cannot be changed easily. Remember I said that the RAM is mostly fixed on the motherboard. So look at the image down there. You realize that it's fixed on the motherboard, so you can't actually just take it out easily. Yeah, as compared to the RAM, which contains ports that you can easily take out and put in or replace, right? Good. So now that we've looked at some of the features of the RAM and ROM, let's look at the differences. Let's try to compare them and see if we can go through them. So let's look at the three differences. We have the RAM and ROM. So RAM, we said it only keeps information when the computer is on. Yes. And then the ROM, it keeps information on the computer whether the computer is on or off. So these are the two things. RAM keeps information only when the computer is on. ROM keeps information on the computer whether the computer is on or off. RAM is volatile. Volatile means that the information or data will be lost when the computer is turned off. Non-volatile, it means that the information will not be lost even when the computer is turned off. Now let's look at RAM again. RAM, it says more memory can be added. Since RAM can be taken out and placed back in, you can actually add more memory to it. But the ROM, like I said, is fixed and cannot add more memory. Right, so the ROM, you can add more memory to make your computer run more fast. If you have 2 gig, you can increase it to 4 gig or 8 gig. But the ROM is fixed, you cannot change it, right? So let's look at a clear summary of the differences between the RAM and then the ROM. So we said RAM is temporary. That means that it is volatile, and then it can be changed, that is, can change, and it helps to run programs. The ROM is permanent, meaning it's non-volatile. It cannot be changed and it helps the computer to start. Remember these key things because the tests that we'll do would have some of these questions in. So let's go over it again. RAM is a temporary memory, meaning it is a volatile memory. RAM can be changed because it has slots that you can just pick out, clean, and put new ones in. Then it helps program to run on the computer. But ROM is permanent, cannot be changed, and it helps the computer to start. All right, good. So let's dive into the meaning of volatile and non-volatile more, right? So as I've been trying to explain, volatile means the information on the computer will be lost when the computer is turned off. So when we say a volatile memory, it's a type of memory that will lose its information or data when the computer is turned off. And then non-volatile means that the information on the computer will not be lost when the computer is turned off. So volatile information will be lost, non-volatile information will not be lost. Let's go over it again. Volatile information will be lost, non-volatile information will not be lost. Very good. So let's look at a quick summary of our lesson for today. He said RAM means random access memory. RAM means random access memory, and ROM means read only memory, right? RAM stores information temporarily, meaning it is volatile. Then ROM stores information permanently, meaning it is non-volatile. Now both are important for the computer to work. All right, so God bless you so much. I believe that you've enjoyed yourself, and we are looking forward for you to complete the online assessment. So I'll see you when I see you. As I always say, in this world you've got to do what you've got to do, because if you don't do them, they will surely do you. Bye bye.